So here's why breathwork alone is most likely not going to give you the results that you want or the transformation that you're really looking for. One of the things that I hear people say a lot, especially newer clients who are earlier on in their process or just starting to work with me, they will say something like, but I've already done so much work around this. And sadly, whenever I hear someone say that, I know that they're earlier on in their process. And that's not something rude or mean. It's just that once you get further along in your journey of personal growth and transformation, one of the things you realize really quickly is that it's ongoing. It doesn't end. And that's not like a death sentence or something that is bad. It's not about getting to some destination. It's about learning how to navigate your process in a faster, more efficient, easier way where you actually enjoy it and you become willing to be uncomfortable and feel uncomfortable, hard feelings because you know what's going to be on the other side, right? And when you have that perspective, that awareness, that context, and the tools, then the process of transformation and the journey becomes a lot more enjoyable and more like an adventure than feeling like you're digging into the depths and you don't feel like you're ever going to get out, or to feel like, oh, well, I'm only doing this because I want X, And I think that is more of like a beginner mindset, because once you realize that it's not really about the thing, it's about going through this process of understanding yourself more and more deeply, peeling back the layers and really starting to dance with what it is that you're being called to do in this lifetime and the journey that takes you on, and really peeling back the programming and the layers of, wanting approval or not feeling worthy that tell you that you need X in order to feel okay, right? And once you let go of that, you can really start to dance in this journey and trust where your intuition is telling you to go and where you feel guided to go. I say all that to say that breathwork itself, while it can be a really powerful tool to go inside of yourself and to get to know yourself, just using breathwork alone is most likely not going to get you the result that you're looking for. Meaning that if you are looking to shift a long-standing pattern or challenge, say around relationships, right? Say you keep getting into the same dysfunctional relationship with the same partner who's emotionally unavailable or who's overbearing or controlling or whatever it is. If you want to permanently change that pattern, just doing breath work is not going to shift that. Or say you want to make more money in your business and you've been stuck at a plateau, just using breathwork alone is not going to shift that. When it comes to what creates a real transformation, this is something I've been studying for the last 25 years when I was looking at what is the fastest way to get to where I want to go, to create change, to end this long-standing pattern of anxiety or people pleasing or whatever it is in my own process. And what I realized is, I never set out to do inner child work necessarily. That wasn't something that I was like, oh, I want to do inner child work. However, what I discovered is that going into early childhood and what is living in the subconscious based on imprints from your parents, from being in the womb, from your environment very early on, like when you were conceived until, about 6 or 7 years old, and the way you absorbed your environment and the decisions you made about yourself and the world based on what you witnessed and the energy and emotional dynamics in your environment, you make unconscious decisions about who you are, what you're worthy of, what you're capable of, what kind of place the world is, how to relate to people and what relationships are, what you can expect in a relationship. with yourself, with other people, with the world, with your career, your boss, your business, your bank account, all of it. You know, you make unconscious decisions and then project them on all of these things, and they're all based on these very early years. So if we can get back to that and pinpoint what that is, and then use a tool like breathwork, which is really powerful, to move that energy specifically, then we're cooking with gas, right? Then we are getting somewhere. But we have to be able to pair the breath work with something really tangible and something that really cuts to the core of like what's actually going on here. It's not something that we can reduce to like something surface level. You know, like I have a lot of clients who will say, well, I was bullied in middle school. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not gonna work with that because that's still like a symptom, right? By the time you were in middle school, all of these imprints were already in place, right? So that's not the origination point. And not to say that's not important and you weren't hurt and it didn't impact you, but the reason why it impacted you so much is because of these deeper imprints, right? So we want to be able to get to that as quickly as humanly possible so that we can bring that energy up from the subconscious and we can access the unconscious and suppressed emotions around those imprints. You know, because a lot of times what happens as kids is we automatically respond to something in our environment, right? So say you can sense that you have a parent who is not emotionally available for you or doesn't have the capacity to meet some need, right? Instead of processing the fear around that or the lack of safety or the instability around that, you immediately respond by creating a coping mechanism, right? So if you had a parent who maybe was like emotionally unstable, you would immediately respond with a coping mechanism of, okay, I'm going to take responsibility and enmesh with this parent. I'm going to attune myself to this person so that I can feel safe. And then that creates an imprint of what it means to relate. So then in all relationships, especially intimate ones, you will create that coping mechanism unconsciously because you associate that with safety, survival, love, connection, nurturing. So then when you're in an intimate relationship, you will do that same thing of attuning to the other person, taking responsibility for them, not being able to know the difference between their emotions and yours. And that could look like overgiving, people pleasing, abandoning your own needs to be there for the other person. And then, you know, you end up feeling unacknowledged or resentful or whatever it is. And you're like, why do I feel this way? And it's because of this internal unconscious operating system that is around this imprint you created of what it means to relate, and you're unconsciously doing that. So when we can identify and pinpoint not only these coping mechanisms, but the underlying suppressed emotions that are holding them in place, then we can use the breath work to move that energy, and then you can really create a shift, a permanent shift. And you know, it doesn't take one breathwork session, but when we pair a really powerful tool like the breath with the consciousness and somebody to walk you through and supporting you in pinpointing what this deeper coping mechanism is, and then you can bring consciousness to it and you can start to feel those feelings or have access to that part of you that felt that way, then you can use the breath to really process it, feel it, and move through it. And that's when breath work is going to be the most powerful. And that's basically what I figured out after the last 25 years of using it, but also observing where all of these deeper patterns come from in my clients and in myself, and then being able to create the tools to pinpoint that along with the breath work. So, you know, if you're somebody who's been using breath work for a long time or been in therapy for a long time or doing any other various healing modalities for a long time, and you still don't feel like you have the results that you want, or you feel like you've been spinning your wheels a little bit and you're still repeating the same patterns, it's most likely because you haven't identified the deepest layer of where something started, and you haven't been able to access the deeper layers of emotion that are holding that in place. And you may have gotten close, right? Or you may have gotten where you've been able to get, right? But you just haven't had the circumstances or the tools, or you haven't gotten there in your process yet where you've been able to identify what that deeper layer of emotion is that's holding all of these mechanisms in place and really driving the way that you function on a subconscious level, right? Because 99% of people are not aware of these things, right? Until I'm able to like get under the hood of the car and really point them out. So this is something that largely it's not something you can necessarily identify on your own, but you can start to get there by using some of the breath works that I have on the playlist, like the one to get in your body. Release trauma from the body would be a great way to start. But then, once you kind of feel like you've hit a wall in a sense of like what you're able to access on your own, that's when you want to reach out for support, and you can reach out to me. You can email me. I'll leave my email below. You can comment on this video. But I have been doing this work for 25 years. I know I'm really good at it, but when I am moving through something and I'm wanting to create a change, I need someone else to help me pinpoint what's going on. When you're in it, it's very hard to go through it and pinpoint it on your own. It's very hard to move through deeper, unconscious emotions on your own. You need someone to hold a safe space for you to walk through that. And that's why this work is so important, because some of it we can do on our own, but the really deep layers that will create the real transformation, we always need support with that. And that's, what I mainly focus on with everyone and what I teach other people to do in my certification. So that's kind of the gist around, why you might not have been getting the results that you want, even though you feel like you've been doing a lot or you've done a ton of work. It's just a matter of being able to go to these deeper layers and really pinpoint the function of what's happening, and then using the breath to shift it in a very specific way. So if you have questions, if stuff is bubbling up for you, I'd love to hear it in the comments. You can send me an email. I'll link my email below, or reach out to me on Instagram, whatever works. I'd love to hear from you and what this brought up for you and talk to you. So thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also listen to my podcast, Reclaiming Consciousness. I will see you next time.